everybody just sit still. I guess we can talk. It's just. Well, I'd like to thank everybody here for coming to this seminar here. It is called How to Open a Business in Metuchen, and we're very thankful to the Borough of Metuchen for hosting it. Excuse me, thankful for Metuchen Savings Bank for sponsoring it. Their folks who brought you that coffee out there. And the Metuchen Chamber of Commerce is actually presenting it. We got the speakers together, and this really all came about because one of our board members got the idea to do it, and then kind of set things in motion. This is part of our 2016 Business Information Series. We've had a lot of seminars already in personal finance. We've got a great three-part online marketing seminar coming up, April 5th, 12th, and 19th, which is going to be essentially 9 hours of pretty powerful information on how to really make online marketing work for you. On April 26th, we have ServPro of Edison, one of our chamber members, is going to present an emergency-ready plan. A lot of people talk about the disaster plans they have for their business. Well, that's fine, but the presumption of this seminar is that you're going to have a disaster. How are you ready? And so that's going to be very interesting. Here today, of course, we're going to talk about how to open a business in Metuchen. We've got a great panel. We're going to, I'll just introduce them real quick. That's Ron Severino, Vice President, Chief Lending Officer at Metuchen Savings Bank. Raise your hand, Ron. And it's Nancy Bukovina, who is the chapter chair of Central Jersey SCORE, which is a organization of, used to be retired executives, but now I don't even know if you have to be retired. You just have to be very knowledgeable and wise and willing to serve as a mentor. Next to me is Mr. Jordan Zimmel, Vice President of Zimmel and Associates Corporate Real Estate Services. Over here to my left, your right, is Ruchir Mewawala, who is an owner of Metuchen, of Rose Events and Buddha's Loft Salon. And next to him is Chris Cosenza, zoning official, Borough Metuchen. And finally, at the very end there is Jennifer Maier, and she is the Borough Administrator. So once again, just want to thank everybody for coming here. Again, this is kind of what the Chamber of Commerce does. We like to get people together to talk about business type of topics. And I think everybody here, I know a few of you, you are very interested in business in Metuchen and maybe starting one. So thanks again. Feel free afterwards to talk to the panelists. I guess we'll have a question and answer. We have a microphone up there. And again, this is being recorded, and it's going to be on the Chamber website later on if folks want to kind of check that out. Or if you know people that really want to be here and couldn't, it'll be there. So first of all, we're going to start off with Jordan. As I said, he is a Vice President of the Corporate Real Estate Service. And I guess you're going to talk about really how maybe businesses need to match their needs to the right space.
Correct. So a quick overview of Zimmel Associates. We are it's a family-run business. We just celebrated our 30th anniversary in January. We handle about 4.5 million square feet on an exclusive basis, and we do anything from sales to leasing to investments for office space, warehouse space, and retail space. So you're looking to open up a new business. What I would do is I like to sit down with all my clients and find out exactly what they need in their space. What can they live with? What can they live without? So things that someone may need: frontage on a major road, visibility, ample parking, ceiling height, signage, location. These are all important to me to know before going out to try to find you that new space. How do brokers do that? Phone calls, online databases. We work with a lot of property owners in the area, so it's our relationships with them that really, drive the markets. Phone calls. We use a database called CoStar, which I think is one of the best MLS websites for commercial space around. I could literally put in what you're looking for, square footage-wise, rent-wise, location. I could look at floor plans and do all that for you online rather than having you go out, drive around, trying to find a location, call on a sign. We really save you a lot of time. I try to make that process for you as simple and stress-free as possible, and I really believe that I can do that. rent, what drives rent up. I actually think the build-out of your space is where you make or break the deal. For example, with retail space, you normally get a vanilla box, which is floor, walls, and ceiling. If you need offices built out, more bathrooms, property owners really won't do that with retail space. Office space, normally you get paint and carpet. Maybe they'll knock down a wall here or there for a 3-year lease, for a 5-year lease. They'll do more work for you. Also, for example, starting the business, I'd probably say stay away from Metro Park in Edison. Metro Park rents are in the mid-30s a square foot. If you could maybe go to Raritan Center in Edison, or maybe somewhere off the beaten path, you'd probably save at least $10 to $12 a square foot. So it's a matter of trying to find that equal median of, of what you need and what you don't need. One of the biggest hurdles that I come across with a startup company is having the owners feel comfortable working with the startup. So if you're looking to have the owner build out the space for you as a startup, he wants to have some security in knowing that the company's going to make it. He's not going to spend 15 to 20 grand on a build out for a 5-year lease, and maybe after 2 years have the company go belly up and he's left with space that's mainly unleasable. So with that, I'm seeing a lot of property owners want a personal guarantee from the tenant, which is a scary thing to a startup, having to be on the hook for the entire term of the lease. That's why if you could work with a broker and structure your search in such a way where you find a unit that is as close to your build-out as possible, that would save you a lot of money up front and save the property owner a lot of money, which may give him a little more ease of mind with trying to work with you. Some ways around the personal guarantee would be maybe put a little more security up front. Personal guarantees really burn off after each year, so if you do a 5-year lease and you leave after 3 years, you're only on the hook for maybe 2 years, or maybe you just do a personal guarantee for the cost of the build-out, so he's not hurt after the end of the lease. Those are really the main things that I'm seeing. That's it.
Well, thanks. Yeah, we'll get back to maybe have another go-around with the panelists. Ron Severino is Vice President and Chief Lending Officer of Metuchen Savings Bank, and I guess people come and talk to you about their business, and they're talking about money.
They certainly do. First, a little plug about Metuchen Savings. We were formed back in 1897. If anyone is a history buff, that's when McKinley was president. So I think other than Flynn Funeral Homes, we're probably the second oldest business in the area. But I will tell you that, what people here already understand, that we're the community bank of Metuchen. We're headquartered in Metuchen. We're noted for making residential mortgages and commercial mortgages, but we also make small business loans. And people don't necessarily know that about our bank. Just a thought, I was just thinking about getting back to 1897. I'm wondering, since this is about a startup, was it more difficult to start a business then or now? I don't know the answer to that. I'm sure that there are more opportunities, I guess, today, but I don't know if it was if it's any easier today than it was then. Anyway, just that thought. So we do make loans of all types, and we have many local businesses in town that borrow from us, maybe on a line of credit basis or a term loan, loans for the fit out of their space. Those are all productive purposes, and that's what a bank is for. So that's a little bit about our bank. But so now you want to start a business, right? So what's the best advice I can offer as a lender? I think the most important thing that you can do before starting a business is checking your credit. That is above all else, because any lender is going to be interested in your credit, whether it's a bank or a non-bank lender. Credit matters. And oftentimes, it's going to be the difference between getting the loan or the funding or not getting it. So what I would do is go to the credit bureau, get your credit report, look to make sure everything is accurate on that report. And oftentimes, things fall between the cracks. They're not always accurate on a credit report. There may be credit cards on there that, you never even ordered, or you think you filled out an application maybe 10 years ago or 5 years ago, and you didn't think anything about it. Those accounts are still on your credit. If there's any disputes, do the things that you can do to raise your credit score. There are a lot of little things that you can do. You'd be surprised. You can just Google, your FICO score, and it'll give you helpful hints on how to improve your credit. The next thing is, if you have a business plan, pull it out again, polish it up, redo it, make it relevant, make the reader comfortable that you understand your product or service, you understand your market, explain what your marketing strategy is going to be, what's going to set you apart from any of the competition in the area. Talk about yourself, your background, if you have any partners or other people involved in the management of the company. Let the reader know what you bring to the table, because it's all about getting, from the bank's perspective, it's all about getting comfortable with you as a borrower. Because all the bank wants to do is get their money back. They just work on a small spread. That's it. And so they want to be careful. The question often asked is, if I had this much money in my own account, would I lend it to you and feel comfortable that I'm going to get it back, that you can make this plan work? Develop a cash flow. It's a great exercise. I can't emphasize that enough. My son-in-law's sister started a beauty salon, not in this area, but in another town. And they came to me and asked, my opinion. And I said, the rule of thumb is, right, whatever you think you're going to do in revenue, cut it back in the first 1 or 2 years, and whatever you think you're going to spend in the first 2 years, double that, because it's a lot harder to bring in business and a lot easier to spend the cash flow. And their first year they struggled, but they're in business. They're making a go of it. But after a year, this woman came to me and said, "Boy, you couldn't be more spot on." She said the money just went out the window because they did extra on the fit out, made it real pretty, and they felt because they were doing this, you build it and they will come. Well, it wasn't quite that way. It's taking more time, but they did negotiate a very good rent. Which was important because another space they looked at, they were going to pay $30 a foot next to a ShopRite that had inadequate parking, and I dissuaded them from moving there, even though it was a more modern building, because the ShopRite just absorbed all the parking spaces, and it was crazy. And I said, people are not going to put up with that for a long time. So they went to another spot, half the rent. So now they're not making, all the profit they're making is not going into rent, right? They get to keep some of it. But still, the business it takes a while. So the point is, it takes a while to get the business going, and you've got to be vigilant, and you've got to have a plan that a lender thinks is practical and realistic. The next thing is, think about what collateral you're going to have to offer in getting a loan. Particularly a bank is going to ask, if it's a startup business, more than likely a bank is going to ask for a lien on your house. Again, because the bank doesn't want to share in the risk. They just want to get their money back. So if you have equity in a house, even if you're applying for an SBA loan, chances are, if you have equity, a lender is going to ask for a lien on real estate, at least for a period of time until they're comfortable that you're out of the woods and things are going well, right? And the next piece of advice is I would start and look for a good match with a lender. I think a good place is to start with the bank you're already with. If you have a history of a deposit account there, or you have a home mortgage or a home equity loan or a car loan, at least they know you a little bit, and they get to know something. They know something about you. That might give you a little leg up. Now there are other, if you don't make the cut, so to speak, if you go in and you think you apply to a bank and the bank turns you down for one reason or another, there are other sources of funding available that weren't available, just 10 years ago. You have these peer-to-peer funding sources. Again, you could Google them. They're all over the place. Prosper.com is a big one. Again, these peer-to-peer sites, they're going to focus largely on your credit score. They're not going to focus on collateral. They're not going to focus on so much on any history, if you will. But the trade-off is you're going to spend a lot more in interest expense with these places. Probably 4 to 5 times the interest rate that you would expect to pay with a bank. All right? There's crowdfunding sources, which are popular now, that weren't around just a few years ago. That's where individuals, so if you want to start up a business and you say you're going to need $100,000, you go to a crowdfunding company, and they actually seek individuals that would fund little chunks of the amount that you're asking for. And if they can get enough people to fund $100,000, then you'll get your money. If they can't, I've never done it, but I'm assuming you put your resume up online and you tell a little bit about your business. And if they're unsuccessful in raising that $100,000 for you, then it's not going to happen. They just turn you down. But if they can raise the 100 from little chunks, there you go. But again, you're going to pay a lot more in interest charges than you would from a local bank. And I would add that sometimes it's better to just buy cash flow. I don't know if that's another option. You don't have to start from scratch. You can start by buying an existing business, buy the cash flow of that company. The benefit there is you already know the history of that business. You know what you can do differently to make that business improve. You typically will pay, maybe one-time sales or a multiple of the net cash flow. But oftentimes when you're thinking about buying into a franchise, the startup cost is large, right? But the value of that business is only based on its cash flow. If you go to resell it, it's, one-time sales or whatever it is. So you may cut out a lot of the risk by buying an existing business with established cash flow. So that's another option, I would say. And getting back to funding, there's something else that's come up that, again, wasn't around just a few years ago. And that is roll over a business startup where you can actually take your 401k or your IRA, go to a company, and they will take the money out of your existing 401k plan and roll it into a new plan, and that plan will buy stock in your new business. It's not a loan, it's your money that your retirement account is investing in your business. All right, it's very unique, it's actually becoming more and more popular. Now, there is typically a startup cost to do that of a couple of $1,000. The companies that do it, they charge typically a small annual fee to service it, but you're not paying a distribution. There's no tax implication, and your IRA or this new IRA type of account that owns stock in your company is going to get either the income or the loss from your company, and it'll go to your new IRA vehicle. So that's something that hasn't been around a long time, and it's becoming more popular. What else can I tell you? I would say one thing very important, I think, from my perspective, there's a TV show out there that everyone, if you're thinking of going into business, I don't need to plug CNBC or any other network or whatever, but there's a show called The Prophet. Marcus Lemonis runs it. It's his show. He stars in it. It's a fantastic show. You got to watch at least 6 episodes of this show before you go into business. He takes struggling businesses that on teetering on going out of business. He's a billionaire. He invests his own money, and he looks at three things. He boils it down to three things: the product or service, the process that you do in your business, and the people involved in the business. And if he feels if there's a problem, he traces it back to those three things. And if he feels that he could fix it, usually it takes money, but it's more than money. It's identifying what's causing the problem. And I would say he's probably successful 75% of the time. The other 25% just, it's like butting heads. People won't pay attention. But I think you want to see what real life experience is about running a business. If you're thinking of starting one, you've got to watch this show. It's fantastic. I'm here to answer any questions. I don't want to take up everyone's time, but I just thought I'd give you my perspective on starting a business. And it's not the easiest thing to do, believe me, I understand. Even owning one and expanding it is difficult. But you've got to, again, look at your competition, look at what you can do differently. Always remember that revenue dictates the level of expenses. Very important. Expenses can run away from you so easily. And all businesses, whether small or large, encounter those same issues. And you have to roll with the punches, and you have to change your strategies. And talk to other people in the industry. You'd be surprised what you would learn. Because everybody does it a little different, a little better, whatever. You can pick things up and make it your own. So thank you.
Well, thanks, Ron. Nancy Bukovina is the chapter chair of Central Jersey SCORE. SCORE's been a national organization, possibly even international, that basically just takes vast business expertise and knowledge from all kinds of people and adapts it to your personal situation. Tell us about how it will work if someone's coming to Central Jersey SCORE and wanted to start a business.
Okay. As Larry said, we are a volunteer organization. First of all, I have a question. How many out there, and I can see you if I get really tall here, have heard of SCORE before? Wow, that's great, because most times I go to an audience and they go, are we playing soccer or something? Did somebody? Anyway, SCORE is a volunteer organization. We work under the sponsorship of the Small Business Administration. And our big cousin, if you will, are the Small Business Development Centers. We are all volunteers. There are 11,000 of us across the country. There are 8 chapters of SCORE in the state of New Jersey, and our particular chapter was the 14th founded in the country. So we've been around for 51 of the 51 years of SCORE's life. We've got 30-plus volunteers with over 1,000 years of business experience in the chapter. Our primary activity is to provide business mentoring to people who want to start a small business or who own a small business and are experiencing a business problem, a business issue that they're looking for help in defining a solution, or to work with folks who simply want to have someone review their business plan and see does it make sense. A disinterested but knowledgeable third party, if you will. Our services are, first of all, the best kept bargain in America. We're always free. So anybody can come back to us as often as you want, and they're always confidential. We don't go spreading your business issue to the world. We may remove the names, as they used to say on the old Dragnet commercials, to protect the innocent and do something of a revised case study with it for our fellow mentors, but that's as far as it goes. One of the things the Chamber asked me to do was to talk about, in my experience with SCORE, what are the lessons I've learned in working with small businesses and people who wanted to start a business. They're a little bit different for those who are buying into a going concern. But for people who want to start a business, first and foremost, I would say, know something about the business you're going to enter. The typical example is the person who comes to me and says, Nance, I want to open a restaurant. And I'll say, why? Well, my friends think I'm a great cook. I love cooking. It makes people happy. I want to open a restaurant. Well, there's a big difference between cooking, even for a large group of family and friends, and running a restaurant every day. And my first word of advice to those folks is, if you've never worked in the industry, go get a job there. Find out if you really like it. Turning your hobby into a job can be great, but it can also be a disaster, and not only do you have a business downside to deal with, you've also ruined your hobby for yourself. So think about that seriously. If you want to start a business, know something about it, about business, about customer service, about the actual roots of that business. The second thing is, and I think you summed this up beautifully, have a business plan. If you don't know where you're going, any road's going to get you there. If you don't believe me, drive with me sometime. But it's really important that you know where you want to take your business. I also find it useful to take your business plan and have someone you trust, but who hasn't talked to you about business, read it. I have a tendency to assume when I write something, I've covered all the bases. Obviously, everybody would understand this, and they don't. You need somebody to take a look at that business plan and ask the hard questions that come out of the assumptions you've built into it. You wouldn't be writing a business plan if you thought it wasn't going to be successful. So you need a skeptic to look at that and really challenge you on your assumption set. Assemble your A team, and that's your team of lawyer, accountant, banker, real estate expert, in today's day and age, a web designer, because you can't do anything without a web presence, and go to your business plan and say, are there other experts I need in there? Do I need somebody who can factor receivables for me? Do I need to know that? Do I need to know something about import-export? I have an attorney, but do I need to also work with somebody who is well-schooled in the arcane of copyrights and patents? That all comes out in your business plan. So you need to go through that business plan as a document that tells you who you need on your team. And then develop your do list. Most people think there's one, but I think there's three. There's the what I have to do to make this business work, what I'm capable of doing, and hopefully that is pretty close, but it won't be in all instances. And then finally, what I'm willing to and can do. And the can is a factor of time. So if you know it's vitally important that you have a blog, but you hate going on computers, please either don't start one or hire somebody to do that for you. But don't do it and do it badly, or don't start it and then let it drop. I once worked with a company that said, oh yes, we put out our press releases to keep people current on what we're doing. So I looked at their website, and the last press release had been released about a year ago. Well, that says to me as a consumer that that company really didn't care a whole lot. So that's the kind of messaging that happens when you think you can do something, but you really don't want to do it. Remember, what you have to do, what you can do, what you will do. And you can only work about 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, and maybe a couple hours over the weekend. You got to recharge, so keep that in mind. Know what success looks like. If success to you is, I turned a profit, I met all my personal bills, I kept the business going, I kept up with all of my obligations to taxing authorities and local authorities and my employees. And people keep coming back, and I'm tacking on 3 to 4% growth in steady state. That's great. That's a good news story. But if business to you is, I'm going to become a millionaire overnight or in 2 years, look seriously at your business plan and say, is there any way to get there from here, or are my expectations out of kilter? By the way, Plan B is also the, not quite to the, and I encourage everyone, go to the disaster recovery seminar. It's very important. But my main supplier was just washed out by Sandy. What am I going to do to get goods into my business to sell? So always have a plan B and know what it is you're going to be doing to execute that plan B quickly. Those are the big things that I've found I would tell a new business to do. And remember, one last time, when you build your team of advisors, if we can help, SCORE is always here. We're always free. Just give us a call. Our brochures are out there. We also do some seminars. They are also free. So enjoy, come, listen to us. We like an audience. Thank you, and good luck to you all.
Thanks a lot, Nancy. Ruchir Mewawala is an actual business owner here in Metuchen, and he's thriving. I think you'd agree with that. He's going to tell us how it happened, and it's an interesting story because, well, just take it away.
Thank you. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here with you all this morning. Thank you to the Chamber, of course, for hosting this great event, and you all for participating. I think opening a business here in Metuchen has a lot of ups and downs like anywhere else, but there are a lot of rumors in the market. You wonder, is it difficult to open a business in Metuchen? Is it better? Am I better off opening a business somewhere else? And listening to all the other panelists, I kind of wish I had, some of this advice, not only about Metuchen in particular, but opening a business in general prior to where we had started. So as valuable as this advice is, we're kind of learning now, 1 year and change into our business, how important it is to have some of these fundamentals in place, whether it be financing, whether it be, the opportunity of somebody like SCORE to guide you and build that foundation, or whether it be to have a real estate agent to find the right location for you, or whether it be having an accountant, having a lawyer, having all of these fundamental things to establish your business that much stronger. So I'll take a step back, a quick background about how we got started. So I've been a business owner per se in Metuchen for a good 10 years. I have a consulting business on Main Street across where the Salon is currently, Buddha's Loft. And I would walk outside every now and then on my way to What's the Scoop or Antonio's or whatever, and I would see this gorgeous salon across the street. And so one thing I would say as an entrepreneur is be careful what you wish for, because I would always say, hey, that loft up there, those apartments up there above the salon look amazing. It would be so convenient to have a commute just 13 steps across the street. And lo and behold, we ended up taking space upstairs in that 2-bedroom flat. And my wife happened to be a customer of the salon downstairs, which at the time was called John Roberts. And again, be careful what you wish for. So I would walk out every now and then. I said, that's a gorgeous salon. I'd love to be an owner of that kind of piece of property. And as life would have it, I would look at the bills coming back and I would say, gosh, woman, you're spending an awful lot of money at this salon. We might as well pay the rent for this place. And just out of conversation, she said, well, guess what? There is an opportunity. The business is not doing so well. There is an opportunity for us to get involved with the business as owners. And I said, well, neither of us cut hair, so that's kind of out the window. She said, well, as an owner versus an actual stylist. So as entrepreneurs, we looked at all the fundamentals, and again, be careful what you wish for. So we ended up having a mutual landlord in common and negotiated a lease rather quickly. And so the misconceptions, as I will take a step back to how hard is it to open a business in Metuchen? You see a lot of vacant properties here and there, and you wonder, are the landlords willing to negotiate with me? Would they rather take the higher rent, or would they rather take the lower rent? I think it's important to do your research, and had I had a real estate agent who could guide me and tell me, that this property owner is a little bit more willing and able, then I'm sure that would make a difference, and perhaps we may not be where we are. But we decided to push the button in spite of what we had heard, and our landlord, thankfully, was very willing to work with us and negotiate with us. And of course, the previous business was not doing so well, so I'm sure in his mind, him being a business owner himself, understood the fundamental aspect of making some revenue versus not making any revenue whatsoever, and of course was willing and able to negotiate a lease. So it's important to listen to what the market tells you, but it's also important to kind of make your own way. And that has actually been beneficial to us throughout the process, where we've had a very unconventional thinking. So at Buddha's Loft, we kind of have somewhat of a saying, think outside of the loft, which plays on, of course, think outside of the box. And here we are 1 year and change into the business, and I've had the great opportunity to meet with Chris when we were first starting off as well, and he gave me some guidance on signage. But as the business was starting, as we had to put a lot of effort into getting things established, signage somehow slipped from the priority, and now we are a year and change into the business, now working on our signage. So thinking outside the loft. So what we realized is that because we didn't have major signage on top, we decided to have some sort of signage. Of course, there's a lot of commuters here in Metuchen, and they do walk the sidewalks very frequently at peak hours and throughout the day. There's a lot of folks that come into town, for lunch and things of that sort. And so as much as the cars do pass by and signage is important, we immediately decided to take our dollars and at least put our signage in the front of the window versus above. And a lot of clients that were coming to our shop for the first time ended up calling and say, hey, listen, I can't find your spot. Well, that's great. At least we know they called. Not only did they call, we ended up turning each and every one of those customers to the opportunity to let them know that you don't need to find a meter. We actually have private parking in the back. And we took that opportunity to not only ensure they had private parking, but we made sure that parking was always available. So we would put a cone out there, we would kind of give them a little valet service. So we took this setback of not having signage and turned it into a conversation, turned it into opportunity to kind of differentiate ourselves from not only the previous salon owners, but all the other salons in the area that didn't have such parking facilities at their disposal. So thinking outside the loft has a lot to do with it. How do you stand apart, as Ron mentioned, with all the other business owners in the market? And of course, if you are taking over an existing business, it's important to know what the weaknesses of that business were or are. Another situation was where we had noticed that there was a lot of reviews online. One of them actually had a picture of cigarette butts outside of the salon. And of course, that's very discouraging to patrons of that particular business or any business. So we took that as a learning curve and implemented that and said any employee that does smoke should smoke in the back of the salon, obviously where it's not so obvious. And of course, immediately we took the initiative for our staff and us as owners to continually keep the sidewalks clean of any cigarette butts and actually remove the cigarette container away down to another business. I won't say which one, but that obviously discouraged any littering, and immediately, obviously, that changes the presence. So, of course, thinking outside of the loft, we decided to tap into the weaknesses of the previous business and change some of those things so that our image and the vantage point of our customers was going to be entirely new, fresh, and different. And one of the other major things that we realized was that the previous business owner was conducting business without hot water. And of course, how do you wash hair without hot water? I mean, that's just the basic. But we also realized that people were willing to still come to the business. Patrons are very loyal to their stylists, and we've realized they're loyal to the point that even if they're getting washed with cold water, they'll still come. So obviously we had a little business opportunity right there where we said, of course, we're going to make sure that we have hot water for our patrons at all different times. And it was as simple as that. I mean, just making these small changes turned into big changes, and now, of course, we have the funding to do things like signage and so on and so forth that better the business. But another thing I should say, if you are looking to open business here in Metuchen, make sure you're ready to make a commitment of at least 3 years. Any business takes at least that much to really find the opportunity of profit sometimes, to cover your expenses, and of course get things moving and off the ground. So as much as it may be a hobby, as Nancy mentioned, or as much as you think you have an amazing business plan, the fact of the matter is we're not the only salon on the street, and we're not the only nail salon on the street, and we're not the only place that provides massages on the street. But now that we've seen 1 year and change into the business, a competitor directly across the street is no longer in business. So if you do the right things and you have the patience of 3 years, you will see that a parking deck may come up. You will see that a Whole Foods may come into town. You will see that opportunity that is far greater tomorrow than it is today may come your way. And you will see that a competitor, that when you were one of 10 on the street, now you may be one of 8 or one of 9. So 3 years, it doesn't seem like a long time, but it's a long time in a business cycle. And willing to wait that out and put the sweat equity today and tomorrow is really what you should be prepared for. So again, be prepared for what you wish for. I think that's pretty much the piece of advice I would say. Is Metuchen's been an amazing town to do business in. It's great to be in a small town where word travels fast, and of course, if you provide a good quality service, it is very much still a referral business, and one will tell another. And that's the beauty of doing business in a small town. We could have been in a shopping mall and kind of done the same thing, but I think we like the fact that the Metuchen vibe is going to be, the energy is going to be getting better with all the other businesses coming into town and the proposed plans that we have. I've actually also taken the liberty to be on a team of stakeholders who are developing Metuchen and developing downtown. So the future of this town is very bright, and we're looking forward to all the other foot traffic that's going to be coming. So I think a lot of people come to Metuchen and they really think that you can open a business simply based on the commuters. And I think that's not the most fair assessment. I think you're better off tackling the residents of Metuchen, the outskirts of Metuchen. I mean, from what I remember correctly, there's 100,000 residents in Edison, and there's a lot of people willing to come to Metuchen and do come to Metuchen to shop. So I think it's important to tap into the outskirts of Metuchen as well. And, it's just the simple things. How do you stand apart from other shops and other businesses in neighboring towns? There are a lot of nail salons. We get that a lot. A lot of people roll their eyes and say, not another nail salon, not another nail shop, not another hair salon. But we managed to bring in a stylist, an artist who does nail art. So she's very different than our neighboring nail shops who are kind of doing things. And of course, investing in the quality of equipment and quality of your products allows you to stand apart from the competition. We've realized that going to a neighboring nail shop, people may go as often as 2 weeks. Coming to us, they come as often as 3 to 4 weeks. Now you would think, well, that's not business friendly because you really want them to come in as often as possible. But if you think about the long term, if you give them a quality product and they're not coming in as often as possible, that speaks volumes. And if you give them something that they can't get somewhere else, that loyalty just deepens, and of course, the ability to stay business in long term is really what you should be looking for, not just short term. So those are just a few things that we've learned in the year, and again, the chamber's been very helpful as well. Participating in street fairs and things of that sort is something that we're looking forward to, and that's something that you only find in a small town. I've never seen Menlo Mall or Woodbridge Mall do any sort of a street fair or a mall fair, and so we'd love to have you guys visit us and see how we're different than the rest. And again, thank you for the opportunity for being here.
Thank you, Ruchir. Chris Cosenza is the zoning official for the Borough of Metuchen, and if you are going to start a business and do any kind of building, I guess, you'll meet Chris.
Yes. So I'm sure everybody's looking forward to what I have to say, so be careful. But when I first started here in 2009, former Mayor Mewawala asked me to, take a fresh set of eyes and look around and see what we can do to make the town better. And one of those things was step up enforcement, but also with the background that I have in planning and architecture, I took a look at the ordinance and I really took to heart to what people were saying. It really is difficult to open business in town. Now, as an outsider of Metuchen, I'm not from around here, and with the background, I really tried to figure out what that meant. And I looked at the ordinance, and I have to say, they were right. It was difficult to open business in town. For example, if you want to go from a retail store to a hair salon, according to the building code, that is a change of use. That's a 3-word phrase we don't want to hear. And I thought that was not a very good practice to discourage very, very minor changes of use. So we really only need architectural or construction change. Very little work had to go to the technical review committee, be approved by the planning board. A very belabored process just for very minor changes of use. So throughout the last 6 years, I've changed the ordinance several times, all of which has been adopted, to really simplify that process quite a bit, to the effect where that retail store to salon doesn't trigger TRC or minor site plan approval anymore. You just need a zoning permit and construction permit. So obviously with an architect and some design professional input, which I'll get into a little bit later. But I've really made an effort to make it easier to open business in town, and to the effect that the only times where I really raise my eyebrow and say, okay, you should be prepared to go through additional steps is if you're opening up a restaurant where there wasn't one and there's going to be an intense use such as more than 50 seats. What I'm trying to say is that at one point, if you want to just open up a small ice cream store, couple seats, and it wasn't a restaurant before, you had to go to TRC. Now, what's a big deal? It's just a couple machines. You pull down the lever, you get some yogurt. Before, you had to go to TRC, and that discouraged a lot of people from coming to town, and that's not the case anymore. So, with that said, I also should note that the borough adopted an amendment in 2014 to the master plan, which reduced parking in half, which is making a tremendous impact to the viability of businesses. Obviously, you have to look at your property with your landlord and see if parking is physically there for you, and that's your call to make. But in terms of the red tape has really been cut quite a bit in terms of figuring out if there's sufficient parking for me to approve it. With it being cut in half makes it a lot easier for me to say, yes, come on in. Let's take a look at your signage. Let's work together on figuring out what permits you need to get this business open. So that's my way of saying ignore those comments you hear that it is difficult to open business in town. They may be rooted in things they've heard or went through 10 years ago. But in any case, when anyone is looking to open a business in town, they should contact me, email me, call me anytime, and I have my phone on me at all times. So even if you have a question on a weekend, I'll probably answer it. If not, don't take it personal. So if you're looking to open a business, you're maybe looking at a certain location, that's good. You don't have to have a location. Just ask me, is this use permitted? And I'll tell you yes or no. With the caveat that you still have to do more homework. You need to figure out what space you're looking at. Is there any build-out that you're thinking about doing? And because at that point, I'll say, yes, generally this use is okay, but you need to rely on your professionals. As we talked about before, your attorney, your accountant, your financial expert, a banker, anyone that can help you develop a business plan, financing. Sometimes I do get people who are very green, and I will help them as much as I could to really put them through. Like, you should look at these things, but I cannot give you legal advice. My hands are tied with that. That's a conflict of interest. What I'm trying to do, what I can do, is give you basic advice, and I'll probably guide you. You should probably check out the chamber, check out your neighbors, your potential neighbors, and your landlord, and just ask for advice, and they'll help you out too. But you have to ask the right questions. But when you do come to me, I will ask for your business plan, because then I can better gauge what it is that you're trying to do, and from that business plan, then I can issue the permit and be able to guide you on the next steps. And see, I'm full-time, I don't work Mondays, but the building inspectors are part-time. The health inspector has a couple towns, and they do rotate. So I do have to become the face, and I will help you through that process of what other permits, licenses, or registration that you may need. I'll spend as much time as I need to try to reassure you what the next steps are. And that's pretty much it. That's a quick summary. I don't want to belabor all the boring details. It is easier, but you still have to do your homework, usually, ideally beforehand. But don't be afraid to ask me for any questions, and I'll do my best to guide you, to ask you the questions that you may have not heard of before. And then when you're ready for permitting, come see me, and we'll get through step by step. I just want to make sure that you're aware of that you always need a permit to open up business in Metuchen. And I will ask questions, as I've been saying, about, even if you don't think there's any changes to your leasehold, you're probably still going to need a permit. That's, for example, changing a water heater, you're going to need a permit. If any new flooring system, even if it's a carpet, you will need a permit. But that's from construction. But I'm asking the questions up front so that you're aware of, so that when you may have zoning approval, but you have to take those next steps and make sure you have all the proper approvals are in place, and I'll try to help you with that. And then the last thing is with signage. You don't have to have a sign to have your business. A simple, beautiful, clean window signage is great, and it shows that you have a very respectful business, very clean, very good operation. Nothing to be ashamed of with just window signage. Sometimes I think that's the best way to go. But when you're ready to do any wall-mounted sign, any blade signage, any sidewalk signs, you will need permits, and if it's mounted to the building, you will need construction permits. And anyone considering an awning, just be aware that that's not a simple thing either, because you have to make sure the frame is going to support the fabric and it's going to withstand wind and snow loads. We don't want it to fall. That's why the permits are necessary. And then I'll take a look at the awning in terms of the print on the sign. So that's pretty much it. I can't really go into detail regarding construction since that's not my jurisdiction, but again, since I'm here almost every day except for Mondays, and I'll make myself available to try to answer the questions that you may have, but I will direct you to the proper departments as necessary.
Well, thanks, Chris. And overseeing all the departments is our business administrator here in the borough, Jennifer Maier.
Hey, good morning, and thank you all for coming. So my background is I'm a licensed architect and planner, and I want to tell you a little bit about the difference between Metuchen and other municipalities in terms of that ease of doing business. So I've probably done 100 different business renovation sets of plans for people. Every town that I've worked in required a full set of architectural, structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing drawings. And many of the projects I did also required a visit to the planning or zoning board with an architect, a planner, an engineer, a traffic engineer, and an attorney. It's a big cost. You know, you could be talking about, depending on the project and the scope of the project, you could be $100,000 just in all of the things that I just discussed. And that's more when you're talking about a new building versus a renovation, but it can get very costly to take an application before boards and to get full sets of construction drawings done for either a new building or renovation. Now, what's different here is that if you're doing minor repair, you're putting up vinyl wall covering, you're replacing some flooring, you're keeping the outside of the window frame there, but you're replacing the window, or you're keeping the door frame there, you're replacing a door. You can do all that without permit. When you start getting into anything having to do with the structure, you're knocking a wall out, putting in a new beam, you're getting into electrical wiring or piping, That could be gas, it could be water, it could be sewer piping, or you're changing the travel of path to the exits in the building, or you're affecting somehow the fire safety in the building. And fire safety could be the separation between your space and, let's say, a residential space upstairs, or it could be smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, anything to do with fire safety. Then you do need to come in and get a permit. So when you come into the construction office, they're going to give you a folder like this that you or your contractor is going to fill out, typically your contractor. They're going to give you individual forms that look like that. And to give you an example, this is anything to do with construction. So if you're removing that wall, you have another form for fire, you have a form for plumbing, and you have a form for electric. And if you're doing any kind of furnace work, you have a form for the chimney that goes from that furnace. So when I would do renovations in other towns, really when we would go into a space, storefront in typical downtown, it would really be what they call a gut renovation. So you'd be taking out all the sheetrock, bathrooms, everything would be gutted. And you'd be creating your fire rating between your space and the space upstairs. You'd be putting in new handicapped accessible bathrooms, a new accessible entrance into the place. You'd be making sure that your separation between your space and your neighbor's building was fire rated. If you had a shared basement somehow, you had to have a separation between your basement and their basement, or interconnected fire alarms. You had to have fire alarms between your space and the apartments upstairs, so that if you had a fire in your space, it would go off in the apartment and vice versa. So it would require much more extensive drawings. When you have to bring in a mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineer to do that full set of drawings for that project, there's a cost to that. There's a cost for the architectural drawings. What Metuchen does differently than that is that if you're going to put in a use that's very similar to what had been there before, you had a retail use, you're going to go to a retail use. You had a restaurant, you're going to go to a restaurant. You had a hair salon, you're going to a hair salon. They do what's called a certificate of continued occupancy. So what that gives you is that the drawings that you need to do, they're much less stringent, okay? And they're not requiring you to bring the space 100% up to current code. That's a huge savings to somebody starting a new business. What it really requires, though, on our end, to make sure that you don't start construction and then have to tear something out, or put up a sign and then find out it's the wrong size sign. The communication between the business owner and the town is critical, and the transparency of the information that you provide to us is critical. So that if you're telling us how many occupants you're going to have, whether you're going to be a takeout restaurant or whether you're going to have people sitting in the restaurant, how you're planning to lay out the space, all those things are really critical. The more information you can provide to us, the better. What type of service you're going to be providing, what type of product you're going to sell. All of that information is really, really critical. You can, once you get in that business and you want to make a change, you can just stop back in and talk to us again. But I have never, in all my years of doing business, seen a town as business-friendly as this, or a staff member like Chris, who really, he'll spend an hour with somebody at the desk and just give them all that information to help them to get started. So we're here for you. If you have a question about architecture, you speak to the construction code official, architectural and structural. Chris knows a lot of that too, but anything really super technical in nature, they can talk to you. I will tell you also that usually when you go to a town and you say, well, I want to open a business, they're like, okay, here's your folder. That's it. Here's your folder. Go get your professionals. I've been to towns where I just had a simple question. You're the architect, look it up in the code, figure it out, come back to us with the drawings. We're not giving you any assistance whatsoever. That's not how it is here. So, if you have a question, you're not sure the direction you're going in, you don't even know if you need an architect, you don't know what you need an engineer to do, please come by and ask that question. And since this is going to be, we're putting this on a DVD so that people who are coming into town new can get the DVD and find out how to open a business for those people who are not here now who might be coming into Metuchen. So I'm just going to give my number out. It's 732-632-8509. And you can call me at any time with any question. There's so much going on in Metuchen that is not even related to the opening a new business. Just things about pedestrian safety and the chamber events. And there's just always so many things happening that businesses, if someone wants to come into town that they should know about, that it's just making Metuchen every day a more and more exciting place to have a business and a more profitable place for a business to open. So we're here for you. We want you to be successful, and we want you to have the information you need. But it's a partnership, and we need the businesses to work with us, okay, in terms of the information they provide us, and when we do tell them what they need to do, that's what they actually do. So that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Big round of applause for our panelists. A lot of knowledge up here, a lot of experience, and same to say about the audience. You guys have come because you really have an interest in this. Any questions? Anybody want to step up to the microphone and any question you think we could all learn from? Or you just want to buttonhole people in corner when we're done? And just up there's Patricia.
Good morning.
Morning.
I have a question for Ruchir. Thank you for speaking to us today, and congratulations on a successful business. As you were starting out and what you were doing, and now as you reflect back, is there a great place that you could recommend anybody who's opening a business to start? You had mentioned a few different people that could be helpful, but if you were coming into the town, perhaps cold, where would you recommend starting, with what group or individual?
I think depending on the nature of your business and what you're thinking, obviously the town is growing, and there's a lot of avenues, and literally avenues and streets where you could potentially set up shop, so to speak. So I think it's important to speak with perhaps Jordan, the real estate, and get an idea as to where you think your potential location might be. I think even more importantly, or equally importantly, you should definitely speak with the members of the borough, Chris and Jennifer, to see what you require before you even find a location or set up shop, and to make sure that Metuchen is, of course, the place for you and your business. I think it's important to also, I got to plug everybody, Nancy and Ron. These are all important aspects of the puzzle, and to figure out whether your plan is appropriate for this town. There's many businesses that may not be the right fit for this town, and vice versa. And so it's important to speak with those folks, and of course also speak with business owners like myself. Knock on some of the doors, and feel free to pop in and see what our thoughts are on doing business here. So I think it's not really specifically one place. I think just put all the pieces together and start making that map for your road trip.
Thanks. Anybody else? Any other questions here? Any other observations? Yes, step on.
What's the difference between a home business and an actual business itself? What's the
I'm sorry,
defining
can I ask you to come up to the mic, only because I want to make sure we record all the business owners also.
Sorry. What's the difference between a home business and an actual storefront business, and what's the defining line between the two? I guess that would be zoning.
Well, the home-based business is much simpler. It's actually based out of the home. You will need a zoning permit, and what I'll be doing is check and make sure only a certain percentage of the house is being used for the business. We don't want a home to turn into a commercial place. Generally speaking, you should just check with me. I don't want to give out too much information, but just check with me what kind of businesses are permitted in a home. Generally, signage is not permitted on for a home-based business. However, if you want to have online signage, social media, by all means, do though. Just warn you not to use your home personal address. That's probably not a good idea. Other than that, there's really no construction necessary. It's just your home office. If you're doing some preparatory work, so say you're doing some artwork or preparing some clothing, you can do that, but what we don't want to see is having delivery trucks coming to your house. So what we have to do is go off-site and then ship and stuff like that. So it's absolutely a much simpler process, but you still need a permit, and you just feel free to ask me any questions.
If I could just,
Zoning between residential and business, is that be in the business district, or can it be still in a residential location?
A home-based business?
Yes.
Home-based business can be any residence.
and the one thing I want to say is if you're planning to gut your entire first floor and turn it into your office space and you're pulling walls out and doing electrical, all those same things apply about permitting in terms of that also.
Anybody else? Any other questions?
There actually is one thing, since we had a discussion with some members of the public and all the panelists. I did prepare a very rough draft of the How to Open Business in Metuchen. Behind it is the older one that you'll find on the Chamber website. I've taken the liberty to update it. This is about 3 years old, so I'm just literally prepared this last night after some comments I heard on that phone conference call we had last week. Been meaning to update it, so now this is a good time to share it with you. And I say rough draft because there are typos. But what I'm looking for are some input as to the process on the inset, on the inside of the page. And I welcome any member of the public to read through it and say, this still doesn't make sense. I need to know that. I'm trying to make it simpler, but sometimes you need another set of eyes to really tell it as it is. And I think it's definitely a great improvement on what was there before, and that's not a criticism on the Chamber because most of this text was from me anyway. So, and I'm hoping to really clarify that all the zoning stuff has been stripped down to like a third of what it really needs to be.
Well, thanks, Chris.
I welcome your input.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And like I say, Chris alluded to this. Metuchen Area Chamber of Commerce, basically, we are an information clearinghouse. We try and put people together. We try and create an alliance of local business where people support each other and get to know the market opportunities here. We've been doing it since 1950, and there have, of course, been a lot of changes in the economic cycles and climates that have gone on in central New Jersey here. If you have ideas to extend our outreach further, or for other seminars like this that you, as business people, think would be informative, let us know. We're here, 323B Main Street, and we're there.
Can I just mention one other thing? We're also updating our signage ordinance. So if there's a particular type of sign that you feel would be the most appropriate to advertise your business, don't hesitate to come and speak to Chris about it, because the codes are a document that can change and revise over time, and new types of signs come out over time. So don't be afraid to come to us and discuss what you want to do. We can always incorporate it into our signage ordinance.
Yes. A lot of that came from the experience of hearing feedback from businesses throughout the last 5 years, and obviously my own thoughts as to with the ordinance doesn't really make sense. There's certain restrictions, like, wow, that's really restrictive. You really can't do much. So I'm trying to strip away a lot of the restrictions, but still maintain a highly valuable, appropriate design. In fact, I'm going to add certain municipalities throughout the country have incentives for good design. Now, it's hard to quantify or qualify what that is, but I'm going to make a best effort to allow those things to go in. And furthermore, to that point, any information that you think I should be looking at, any guidelines that you suggest that I should review to incorporate into the sign ordinance, I'm about 90% complete. I'm not sure when we'll share it. I'll probably share it with the chamber first, as well as with the business owners. I would like to have a meeting and discuss, before we even look at the ordinances, identify what types of signage makes Metuchen, and I'll go from there. I'm looking forward to adopting it. And there's been some certain Supreme Court rulings that really throws a wrench into the really all ordinances throughout the country. And you may have heard of it, but I'm not going to bore you with details. We have to update our ordinance beyond just the aesthetic. And
In addition, I think there's also a lot of grants that certain businesses can apply for and get when it comes to signage.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be important to see what the rules and regulations and how, if any, they've changed moving forward. And perhaps you may want to look online to see if there are any grants. We're actually in the process of doing that ourselves now. It kind of offsets some of the expenses of putting up your signage, and I'm glad to hear what Chris is saying, because I guess it pays literally to wait to put up your signage in this case.
yeah, whatever experience you go through, I like to incorporate here regarding grants, so that'd be great.
Yeah, if I could just add one more thing, just in terms of the protection of the business owner. When you go out, let's say you're doing a major overhaul on a tenant space. When you go out to get an architect and an engineer, the drawings that you get from that professional, that is your insurance policy to protect you from a contractor who would possibly not do the right thing or try to hit you with charges as you go along. So if you go out and you're like, I can get this set of drawings for $1,000, this other guy wants to charge me $5,000. Well, maybe the reason is because the guy who's doing the drawings for $1,000 is not putting all the information onto the drawings. When contractors bid a job, you have your rare contractor who will come to you and say, you know what, you have an incomplete set of drawings and you're going to have to put this, 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 and this in, and that's going to bring my proposal up $10,000. But the majority of contractors will look at a set of drawings and say, okay, well, 9/10 of the information is missing, so I'm going to give a bid based on that 1/10 of information that is on the drawings, and then once I get the job, and we've submitted our permits, and that person has to get in, and they're going to be paying rent on the space, then I'm going to tell them, oh, that wasn't on the drawings, you'll have to pay me for that. Oh, that wasn't on the drawings, you need to pay me for that. So make sure you've checked your architect's references and that you get a very, very complete set of drawings, and in your contract with your contractor, reference that set of drawings so that his fee is attached to that document, okay? And when you hire your contractor, for some reason, I've seen it, construction offices that 80% of their work is finishing jobs that other contractors walked away from. Make sure your payments are spread out. Don't give the contractor all the money up front. Give it to him as the work is being completed. And when you, please make sure you call their references. Talk to 3 different contractors, call their references, don't just assume that the guy seemed like a nice guy, because for some reason, a lot of people do not check up on their contractors. So that's all.
Any other questions? Well, thanks for coming, everybody. And like I say, if you have any ideas for other helpful seminars like this, let us know. We have great sponsors like Metuchen Savings Bank, which sponsored this today, and the Borough Hall, which let us use this space. And again, thanks everybody at the Metuchen Area Chamber of Commerce, and thanks to you. I guess we'll adjourn now for just kind of mingling, and you can just talk to people individually. And there's coffee out there still. Thanks.
We're happy with orange juice.